Oh, we are live.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yes.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the throne room for our barbershop conversations.
Absolutely.
We are going to give everyone a chance to come on into the room where we have created a space so that you can purge from your issues, heal from your wounds, and find rest so that you may transform into that which you have been created and called to become, which is a royalty. My name is Monica Jackson. I am your host for this evening, and our guest, not a guest, always, our co host, our brother, Ned White, and we are happy that he is here with us this evening.
And I thank you for the invitation.
I'm excited tonight, Ned, because we get to talk about something that I believe is a real challenge in for our males, but also for our females. But I think even more so for our
Mm,
our men for various reasons, and
yeah.
that
Yeah.
is that forgiveness. So
Yes.
I can't wait to talk about Brother Forgive this afternoon.
Yeah. Or how we don't forgive, huh? and
Exactly,
the things
exactly,
that get in our way to forgive.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Absolutely.
I'm sharing the story to my other timelines, just making sure that everybody can get there. Tag
Yep.
friends, let friends and family know. Go ahead and write your comments. We want to hear from you. Don't
Please.
forget to visit us on the web at royaltynetwork.net. You can also find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We even have a TikTok account. There's some other accounts out there. I don't even know what they are, but they're there. So go find
Just
us.
all over. All over.
That's
Just
it.
fine.
Yeah, we want to get people involved in the conversation. Um, so Ned, you know what? Let's just get started. Um, as we've kind of been going through these last couple of weeks, we've been journeying and having different conversations around what it really means to begin the healing journey as a male,
Mm,
and really kind of trying to break down the misconceptions that men have to look a certain way and be understood a certain way in order to be deemed strong, right?
right.
So we've been trying to really have real conversation about what a real strong man's journey toward healing looks like, right? Um, and in that, today, our discussion is really going to be centered around that forgiveness piece. And so, as we enter into the conversation, I want to start us off by first saying, what is it about forgiveness that doesn't allow men to really take that on? We hear more often than not woman scorned, right? But we don't address
I'm
the
glad you
men
said that.
scorned.
Right.
Okay, so let's get into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's. I mean, and I think it's equally as heavy for men as it is for women. I think women, again, the cliche is always a woman scorn is something to avoid. Um, but the truth of the matter is men get scorned too. And,
Yeah.
we deal with it differently, and we might not be as outward with it. And you might not hear a man running around like trash talking a woman about, oh, she's this, she's that, as often or as much as you might hear that from some women. Um, but brothers, are we can be petty in our issues. We can get real ugly in our hurt, especially if we feel that we've been wronged. We go there, and so when it comes time for forgiveness, it's difficult for us, and I believe it's difficult for us mostly because it's difficult for us to take the veil off. And so
Mm,
for us to be able to honestly say, hey, we want to let you in here, it took a
mhm.
lot for us to do that. And so if that trust, that moment becomes broken, or, that trust becomes, questionable, yeah, we have a hard time letting you back in or opening back up to that.
Mm,
And it's probably one of the reasons why you'll see so many brothers who were in long-term committed relationships, and when they end on some bad note, you hear them say, I'll never do that again. Like they're
Right.
just flat out like, no, I'm not I'm not opening myself up to that kind of hurt ever again.
Right.
Because we just, for a lot of brothers, it's difficult. And I mean, I'm no exception to that. I remember, many a time saying, no. And it took me a long time, even to getting married. It took me a very long time because I had gotten hurt so early on that I was just like, no woman's ever going to get that close to me. So
So what
keep
I
it down to
hear
yourself.
So what I hear is that the fear and the forgiveness is really more so connected towards the vulnerability and the
Absolutely.
weakness that might be shown and exploited
Mhm.
because you're taking that veil off.
Yep.
And so we talked
So the
about
fear of
before about
exploitation. Yeah.
yeah, the fear of exploitation. We talked about before about really breaking down the barriers and the understanding about the weakness. But as we kind of continue that conversation, what is it that we need to know now about that weakness part in connection with the forgiveness? Is it really weakness, or how do they go about showing that
Hmm.
vulnerability?
Well, I think the first thing is to understand that it's not vulnerability, right? It's not a weakness to express, share what you feel, how you feel, whether it's hurt, pain, love, whatever it may be. It's it's necessary to be able to express that, to share that, and be open with it. So it's not a weakness. It's not a vulnerability to do so. And I think so. That's the first misconception that needs to be completely removed from the table for brothers. Is that it's okay to be human. I think I said that a couple of weeks ago, that it's there's no weakness attached to being human.
Right.
All of us hurt, all of us feel pain, all of us feel sorrow. We all grieve, we all go through those processes regardless of gender. So why would we put ourselves in a position to feel like I'm not allowed to feel that way? Like, I'm sorry, there really are no supermen. Like,
Yeah.
let's be honest about that. If you shoot me, I bleed. If you cut
Yeah.
me, I'm going to hurt. If you step on my emotions, my feelings, it's going to trouble me. And
Right.
so, I think that's the first thing. Let's eliminate the fact that, that vulnerability is a weakness, because it isn't.
Right. So, with regards to men and the vulnerability and the weakness piece, I want to go a little bit more into detail about
Okay.
the history of forgiveness, right? So
Mm.
what is it that men have learned, whether it be from the social economic standpoint, familial standpoint? What is it that men really are taught about forgiveness?
Hmm. So it's funny because I think for most of us, it was always about, you know, the trust valuable component to our understanding vulnerability and weakness. And it's, I don't want to make it too generic, so I'll make it more specific to Ned and to me, and how I was raised and what brought me to the realization of where I am today. But you were always taught to be a man of your word, to stand on those values, those virtues of, you work hard, you provide, you take care of your house. Those are the things that we were, innated with. Most of us were like, you just
Right.
have to do those things. Nowhere in there was ever their conversation about how to manage, deal with what you felt. It was
Mm.
always about what you do. And so we were just always geared to be doers,
Right.
conquerors, take over, manage this, manage that. Never, how do you feel about doing that? Or, and so for a lot of us brothers, it was a struggle, and it is a still struggle for a lot of brothers to deal with, that whole concept of, you know, how do I deal with this? How do I manage my feelings? How do I address, the hurt? How do I address the fact that there's trust issues without coming across with this like overbearing, aggressive behavior? It's difficult for us, and it the contrast sometimes creates such a big wedge in relationships sometimes, because women are looking to sit down and discuss, and men are looking to fix.
Right.
And even though both have the same objective, our approach to it sometimes causes more conflict than we are either of them are ready to manage or deal with, because neither one of them are coming from the same place. And
Right.
so for a woman who's looking to be a nurturer and figure out and understand, and for a guy, he's like, listen, that didn't work, let's fix it.
So,
And
the question then becomes: so, are we looking at forgiveness as being tied to an emotion rather than it being something that is done or expressed?
mhm.
How are males really taking on the definition and understanding of what forgiveness means?
Hmm. So I'm gonna take it from two different
Go ahead, it's your
perspectives
floor.
here.
You know.
So, and so for me, for Ned, it's important to understand that forgiveness for me comes from a different place than it used to, right? And so there is this firm foundation in my faith that forgiveness is not about the other person, it's about Ned's healing. And so for me and for a lot of brothers, I'm pretty sure it's the same. We've gotten to a place where we realize like the energy that goes into trying to, be in that ugly place isn't worth it to us. And so we're looking at it from the perspective of like, okay, this is about my journey. It's about my healing. It's about my deliverance from that feeling or that emotion of anger, frustration, hatred, if that's there, whatever those that gets attached to the unforgiveness spirit. So it's in that vein of thinking and living. The other part of it is more of a it's more of a worldly perspective where we just have
Right.
to deal with, there are brothers and sisters who are out here who just don't understand that base. And so when it comes time to forgive, they're just in that, even if I say to you, I forgive you, I haven't forgotten what you've done to me. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so I'm still looking at you like waiting for the other shoe to drop because you did it once, you might do it again. And so
Right.
there's still this apprehension, even in the relationship of, you hurt me once. I'm just waiting for it to happen again so I can black out.
Right. Right. So then that's good. So now I really want to take the cover off, right? So we know that oftentimes the part about the spirituality and forgiveness being about me is not
Mhm.
always exercised. It's not.
It is not. It
And
is
right.
not.
But more often than not, what's exercised is I'm gonna get you before you get me, sucker. Right. And
Right,
and
right. Or,
so
or I'm gonna get you back because you got me.
right, right. I'm gonna treat you like how you treated me because I want you to feel just as much hurt and pain as you made me feel. And
Misery loves
so
company.
yeah, yeah. And oftentimes it ends up causing more hurt and damage than it does in actually fixing or making you feel good. Now there are some people who like, yeah, I'm glad to see such and such go through such and such, right? Um, but in the meantime, that misery loves company piece, it really speaks to the fact that they're still hurting inside. And
Correct.
so how do we really talk about being able to deal with that notion of forgive and forgetting, or
Mm,
forgiving but never forgetting? What is that in there that we should be focusing on?
wow. Yeah, you pulled the cover. Um, that's a tough one. I mean, because it's an individual journey. And so I wish I could say to you that there's this set formula to
Right.
understand that. Um, but for each of us, it's different. I mean, your wounds are different than my wounds, right? And
Right.
your hurts are different than my hurts. And I could say to you, hey, follow steps A, B, and C to your healing. And you
Right.
might say A, B, and C ain't doing it. I'm sorry. I didn't use the whole alphabet and I'm still feeling it the way I felt. Because some folks just that's where they are because of we're all products of our environment. And so if I was never raised or taught or shown how to deal with certain things in a way, my reaction is going to be my reaction, and it might
Right.
work for some and it might not work for others. But to wow, to attack that or touch that on that in a way that gives folks a better understanding of how, wow, it's important for individuals to, as we've always talked about, to do a self-evaluation, to really look at, and sometimes it requires you to remove yourself to do so, but to look at where you are and why and what made you feel the way you felt. What about that hurt? What about that situation? What about that action created that emotion in you? And then find out why. A lot of times those emotions, as you and I both know, are attached to some other situation that we've manifested into our relationships or into our daily walk. So we have to be able to do a self look, a look in the mirror, and figure out, like, why am I here? Why did this happen? How did this happen? And then be able to dissect it, and then go back to the table and express to someone, here's what's going on. I I am. Go ahead. I was
I
going.
wanted to just jump in there really quickly because it sounds real pretty right now, right? And I want us to get, I, and right now, I think that where we need to be with the conversation is we need to get gritty, right? And we need to get to
Mm,
the gritty and the rawness of what it means and the pain that it takes, the challenge that it takes to actually hit that place of forgiveness. I can think about me and myself when I said I forgive you, but I could not, and the struggle between me and my other partner saying, you say you forgive me, but you won't let this go. And I'm saying I did let it go. I just don't forget. And when it resembles the same thing that I saw over here, it's not that I'm not letting it go. It's just that it resembles too much over here and I can't forget that. And so now the
mm,
wall is built and it's precaution. But then I
mm,
learned that also that there is, even though it might have resembled that, there was a process by which he was trying to take to try to get to the next place. And he didn't
right,
know any other avenue to take but that one direction. But it didn't mean that that was his intentions, right?
right,
So,
right.
so what is it about that forgive and forget piece, that raw and gritty process that we really need to acknowledge along the way? And does it mean that everybody's going to be on the same page? And does it mean that my perception of it is wrong either way?
Mm.
I want you to pull it out and tell us from that perspective, that raw and grittiness about that forgive and forget.
So I hear you. so I'll take that hat off. Then is that what you're trying to tell me? Take off the hat and not be nice about it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So the reality of it is yeah, absolutely, money. There is the dirty to the hurt, right?
Yeah.
And so we find ourselves, and let's just use Ned. I'm gonna use myself as an example, as I should always. I've been hurt more times than I'd like to count, right?
Right.
I've had folks literally pull the heart out, step on it, and then look at me like, what's wrong with you and why you feel that way? Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
So I understand that hurt, and I understand the emotion that comes from that hurt, the desire to want to get back at a person, the
Yeah.
desire to really want to, I want to lash back out at you because you lashed out at me, or you hurt me, so I'm gonna hurt you. I wrap my head around that, and I have wrapped my head around that many a night. Um, the truth of the matter is that that place is something that I have to deal with because that's an internal moment. You know what I mean? When I think about the hurt that's happened to me, and the things that I've done, and like even in your example, you were talking about. Normally, those moments happen because the two individuals that are involved were coming at this from two different perspectives, and one of us had to break. Well,
Mm.
somebody was going to clash and fall, and it always turns out to be whoever seems to have the more empathetic or more sympathetic approach seems to be the one who says, okay, I'll yield, but then they also have to yield to the hurt that comes with that.
Right.
And so I've done that enough in my life to know that, like, this is crazy. And in retrospect, I've also been guilty of lashing out and doing the dirt back because I'm thinking, you know what? You did it to me. I want you to get a taste of what I felt. Um, and so yeah, there's a lot of that exists in our modern day.
Yeah.
Um, and we see it all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes to a full extreme, and sometimes very minute, but we see it. Um,
People
Again, it goes.
die behind unforgiveness, right? And the hurt that happens.
Lives have been taken.
Right, right.
There's no
And
question about
it's
that.
not just in relationships as
Oh
far
no.
as male, female. It's in all kinds and
Well,
types
walks.
of relationships, co-worker
Absolutely.
relationships. It's
And
you know,
family.
right. Family, it's friendships,
Yeah.
gangships, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it.
Yeah.
Forgiveness really, it is. It's weird for me to say it this way, but I think it's a culmination of emotion, reason, and consciousness, and all of those things,
Hmm.
spirituality wrapped into one that we have yet to really understand, because we have yet to really understand ourselves,
Ourselves.
understand our greater self, right?
Right.
That
Right.
we have really to really get into the nut and bolts of what does forgiveness mean. But what a great season we're in the Easter
Hmm.
season, for us to be
That's right. To be
able
able to talk about
to talk
true
about,
forgiveness.
right, Father, forgive them, for they know
Right. So
not
they
what
know
they
not
do.
what they do.
It wasn't
Yeah.
about them per se us. It was about the totality of the situation,
Hmm.
our disconnect from
Absolutely.
that which was greater than us. And what you said to me just a few minutes ago, when you were talking about the two people coming to the relationship, and one yielding because there was more empathy on one end, what I really thought about was the fact that we get into these
Yeah.
relationships broken, and we aren't seeking wholeness, but we're seeking our wholeness from the partner in which we connect ourselves with,
Absolutely.
or the family member upon which we think they are supposed to be mommy material or daddy
Or daddy
material,
material. And
right?
yep.
And they're coming to the table incomplete, and then we're dropped. And then our expectations about how they were supposed to show up are hurt, they're damaged, and then
Hmm.
we are now stepping and walking in hurt, dysfunction, regret, and even all
Mm.
kinds of the feelings that happen and are associated with this. And so
Absolutely.
forgiveness doesn't doesn't occur to the capacity that it should, because we have yet to work on ourselves and understand
Ourselves.
who our healing, where our healing is, and where our healing comes from. You wanted to add in there. I saw that. So
Listen, listen, you just said everything that needed to be said at that moment in time. It's like, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, you're absolutely right. It revolves around, it will forever revolve around the us. You know, what is going on with me, and why am I reacting the way I'm reacting, and why did this, again, we always say it. I mean, part of this healing, or a big part of the healing, starts from within. Like,
right,
and so even in our forgiveness and understanding forgiveness, we have to start to learn more about who we are, so that we can be able to honestly forgive someone. Because we completely understand that our growth is contingent upon our being able to disconnect, or let go of some of that hurt. Because I can't heal as long as I keep picking at the scar.
okay, that's a good place, right? So I like that we can't heal as long as we're picking at the scar.
Mhm.
So what are some of those things that men encounter that make it hard for them to forgive?
Oh gosh.
I'm
Wow.
sorry, Ned. You know how this goes, okay?
You know what? Thank you for your moment of empathy. It didn't come across that way, but I'll take it.
It does. It was pure, like, I know, but I got to do the work, right?
I
I'm
got you.
called
I
to
got
it.
you.
I got to.
I got
I
you.
feel for you, brother.
But honestly, I think that in that respect, it's the same. I think across the board for men and women. Um, I think that what gets in the way is our own issues, our upbringing, our belief systems, our own issues of misunderstanding who we are. Um, a big component to not being able to forgive, I believe, is lack of trust. Because when we talk about moments of unforgiveness, it normally stems from or as a result of someone's trust being broken. Whether it was a moment of how you treated me, or a moment of, as you stated before, not meeting a certain expectation. Those levels of trust become the pillars or the building blocks of our unforgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got some people who've been going in
Mhm.
and hitting us up on the chat line in the comments. We really appreciate it. We want to hear from you. Keep letting us know. It says yes,
Absolutely.
it causes a spiritual checkup, and then it says Jessica says it takes courage to come before God and first reflect on how we respond to those actions of others when we've been hurt. Because we are hurt, we want validation in the hurt we're feeling. It's not that we're wrong, but again, it
Mm.
takes me back to having humility to be real with God and say, God, my flesh can't forgive this person, but you are a God who can transform my hardened heart. It's
Wow.
hard, so hard to forgive. It's about pride. Jessica, you know I love you, girl. That
Absolutely. Wow.
that that in a nutshell. There's so much to say about that. I'm gonna let you go ahead, Ned.
Let
Go
me go at
ahead.
it. No,
Go ahead, Ned. Go
I
ahead.
think Jessica was right on point with that. And one of the things that Jessica stated that I think is very true about a lot of us, well, most of us, is that we want to be validated in our hurt. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I want you to acknowledge that you hurt me. I
yeah.
need you to say that you hurt me. Like that's important in my healing. It really isn't. But we want that. It's like how
I'm
it's like
still learning that too, because I'll go back to the thing in which hurt me and to
and
continue for it to hurt me till I hear that you can
right.
acknowledge that
You
you've
can
hurt me.
right.
And it
And well,
sounds so crazy and psychotic when I'm saying it. I'm like, I need to
I'm
sit
glad you
myself down
acknowledged
with
that it was
myself.
psychotic because
Right.
we've all
Like,
been there.
well, if I got to assess myself, right, I sit down with myself and
Right.
write my own self assessments,
They're like,
right?
yeah, that was crazy. But yeah, so we
Yeah.
do. We honestly look to, and we'll stay in a situation waiting for it. You know what I mean? And allow, because we've never addressed the real issue, the core to the concern. We're just on the surface saying, I need you to just tell me you're sorry for hurting me.
Yeah.
And the reality of it is, sometimes the person, I think you even alluded to, sometimes the person isn't even completely aware that they're doing something that's hurting you because
Right.
they're just operating out of their norm.
Right.
But the problem is their norm doesn't line up with you.
Yeah. Oh, you said something that, I think we had
Uh-oh.
a conversation before. You said that I'm sorry word. So
Oh,
I really cannot stand it. It's almost like, I've heard I'm sorry so much and it said with such looseness that it's like, okay, because you said I'm sorry doesn't mean that I'm supposed to just
accept
completely
it.
forget it
Yeah.
and just it's supposed to be out there. When a person says I'm sorry, the expectation is that something follows it. And so what then I am going to ask you, Ned, is forgiveness the last stop? Is it just a runway in between something? And is there something that's supposed to follow?
Is forgiveness the last stop? No. Honestly, I think that forgiveness is really just the acknowledgement, in
Mhm.
my opinion, because it's the beginning of it. It's what gets the ball rolling to the healing. Because forgiveness is just me saying, I have come to the realization that something happened to me that has caused me to feel differently than I want to feel or how I deserve to feel. Now I have to do the work to figure out how to fix what happened or change or develop something new or a new mindset. So for me, forgiveness it's the start. It's the beginning of it. It's the catalyst to getting the motor running. I can't do anything until I've acknowledged that forgiveness is necessary. And
Right.
now I have to do the work.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when we start that process of doing the work, for me, I think as you stated, forgiveness is a starting point. I
Mm-hmm.
also believe that there is another part, twofold part to the forgiveness
Mm-hmm.
piece, which is the other half of that, which is the repentance. And
Mm-hmm.
most people think repentance is just, oh, I forgive you. But repentance is a little bit more than a whole lot more. I'm not a little bit, a whole lot more than that because um, it takes willful, necessary, and intentional action of redirection of our behavior, our thinking, and our due due diligence, right, toward
Mm-hmm.
another. And so, what I say in that forgiveness piece is, if forgiveness is not accompanied by repentance, then it is not truly forgiveness, or asking or saying I'm sorry at all. right?
Correct.
So I think the please I apology is needed at times, but the forgiveness is necessary and the repentance is required um,
Absolutely.
in order
Well
for
put.
us
Well
to
put.
move through.
Mhm.
In order for us to kind of get to the real healing in a process.
Right.
So tell
Right.
us about what that looks like from the male perspective of being able to kind of shift through that process. It might be a little bit more easier for women, I imagine, because we are more in tune spiritually. We have that spiritual connection
Hmm.
per se, out of the nature of who we are.
Right.
But
Right.
for men, because of the societal conditions and things like that, what does that process kind of look like?
A struggle. Looks
Yeah,
like struggle, because it's not, for some of us in the beginning, it's not natural. It's not a natural behavior. It is a intentful, as you stated, an intentful mindset to address what's going on and moving forward through it. And
right,
so one of the reasons why, like you stated, that repentance is so crucial in that forgiveness process is because in that repentance, there's a shifting or a mindset shift. I'm going to operate differently than I did before. And that just
right,
doesn't come from the I'm sorry. Because I could say
right,
I'm sorry a million times and still be the same way. Repentance causes you to operate differently. Um,
right.
and so for a lot of brothers, that's difficult because we don't do change well. Um,
Ah, you acknowledged it for the brothers.
don't. You know what I mean? We are clear in our direction. When we say, hey, this works for me, it works for us. And until you can show me, vividly show a brother, hey, what you're doing needs to be done differently, we gonna operate the way we always operate. Um, and if you tell us that it's wrong, we're gonna look at you and say to you, tell me how I'm wrong. Because it
Right.
works for me. Because it works for me don't mean that it's wrong.
With that hard head.
Well, strong-willed. Let's go with strong-willed.
Okay, we'll put strong will. Either way, there's some suffering on that, wherever you want to
This
say.
is some
However,
struggling. But so yeah, so that becomes the biggest obstacle, I think, for a lot of brothers. It's just being able to get beyond me, get beyond that self of this is what's always worked for me. Um, you know, getting out of that mindset of, it's my way or the highway, or it's,
right,
this is the way I've always done things. And take on more of, which is, here's the word of the day for my brothers, taking on a more submissive approach to moving forward in relationships. And I know that's kind of for a lot of brothers, that's like a taboo word, but it is necessary sometimes, because I can't grow, learn, or develop if I don't take a step back. You know what I mean? You'll never learn how to do something different if you walk in the door saying, I know how.
mm,
I can't learn it. So in order to learn how to be a better husband, a better father, a better son, a better man, I got to take a step back and say, wait a minute. You know what I mean? I've been banging my head on this wall for 50 years. Something's got to be done differently. Let me stop. Let me say, I don't know. God, I need you. Brother, help me. Whoever, mentor, pastor, you know, wherever you go to get your guidance, your understanding, a better awareness, do that so that you can become a better person, a better man, a better son, a better father, a better spouse, whatever it is. You can't grow until because none of us have a book. You know
right.
what I mean? None of us there wasn't when you left the hospital and your parents brought you home, there wasn't like what was that? What was
Manual.
when we were kids? There was the Britannica
Yes,
encyclopedias, and you had like
yes.
volumes one through
My
A
mama
through
got
Z,
those for me.
right? So you had volumes A through Z,
No
and you could
TV, just read.
right. You
Sorry,
could
mom.
always go and be like, "Oh, hold on, I got a question for here. Let me go to this page in this book." Like
Right.
that wasn't sent home with everybody when you were born. You didn't get that, so we learn through our experiences. And what's missing today, and I'll say this part too, and this is for brothers, young and old, what's missing is the willingness to sit at the feet of the elders.
Mm,
We don't sit in front of it. We don't take the time to talk to our elders anymore. Where in years past, that was a requirement. It was part of a rites of passage. You had to sit at the feet of the elders in order to show yourself approved to be able to consider the man. Now it's just, hey, I don't listen to them, and I know what I'm, and you know, and I'm not knocking young folks at all, because I own part of the fact that, hey, the reason why some of our younger generations don't have that in their bag is because folks my age decided to go for self. So brothers my age was like, listen, man, I gotta go make this money. I gotta go get my education. I gotta go establish myself. I'm going after my, you know, White House with the picket fence and whatever. And in the midst of that, we weren't extending ourselves back to that generation behind us, saying, here's the path. And here's how you walk the path. Not just showing them the path, but here's how you walk that path. Because that's what was done for us. I said, I remember, I tell folks, I laugh. I'm gonna be the first to tell folks, I'm quick to pay somebody to do some manual labor. Not that I don't know how, but I'm quick to pay. You know what I mean? My dad taught me how to do all the stuff. I can change a tire, the oil. We can rotate tires. I can sheetrock. I can put flooring down. I know how to do all the stuff that I got a guy right now doing some work at my house. Why? Because I'd rather pay somebody to do it. Right. But my dad taught me how to do all that stuff when I was coming up. Ask me if I taught my sons that stuff. No, I haven't. I've been doing it lately, but I didn't start off that way. You know what I mean? I didn't start off showing my sons, like, literally, I laugh. I took my sons one day and made them rotate the tires on the car. And they was like, Dad, ain't nothing wrong with them. I said, no, dude, we got to rotate the tires on the car because they wear differently. So you want to rotate them and make sure that the wearability is even. And they was like, oh, this is crazy.
So what you just said, there were a lot of really important points in what you just said. And one day I had wrote something on Facebook, and someone got offended by what I wrote because I said something about shucking peas, right? And that I remember growing up and doing that with my grandma and my great grandmother, and what the value that was had in that, and that I essentially missed that, and that I felt sorry for the kids who didn't have the opportunity to experience those things, right? Because of what they missed out on. You know, looking back on it, I could have said it in a little bit more tactful way, but you know, hey, it is what it is.
You did what you do. You provoked the conversation,
right? I walked in my gifting, and the issue really became for me. What I really recognized was that we get to learn how to be in relationship with people, and we learn how to see our greater self inside of the things in which we are taught. There are other relational lessons that are taught about to help us develop integrity and character in those moments that we kind of overlook. Right. The other extension of what it is that I heard was the fact that I believe that we as a people get offended too quickly. And that is what really leads us to these spaces and places of unforgiveness or feeling as if we've been wronged, right? Whereby we then detach ourselves from community and really miss out on the things that would help teach us and guide us and bestow wisdom in us to be able to move forward in a more healthy way. Can you kind of expound or talk about that from your perspective?
Wow. So yeah, first off, let me just say I agree with you wholeheartedly. That I think that, you know, there is a softening of the culture. I can't remember where I was looking at something on social media, and there was this video, I think it might have been on TikTok, to be honest with you, that was showing somebody as they were three different frames where the guy walks by, he bumps into the bumper of the car, and he's like, you know, kids in the 90s bumping into the car, and they'd be like, oh man. And then kids, and then by the time it was like, you know, 2000, it was like the kids falling down on the ground. He's like, oh my God, my leg. You know, as funny as it was at the moment, there was a lot of truth to that. Because I think about, you know, my growing up, and when I compare how I was raised to my parents, night and day. Like I couldn't have handled some of the stuff my mom and dad dealt with. I couldn't even begin to imagine what it must have felt like. Like I was one of the reasons I love my mom with all that's in me, but my mom has always been one of my biggest heroes because of her ability to stand in the doorway of adversity and challenge and still stand.
Right.
Um, and so when I think about her, like this is a woman who lived through in Mississippi in a time when it wasn't pleasant for Black folks to live in Mississippi.
Right.
It's still not pleasant, but but at a time when your disapproval of a motion or an action or a word could cost you your life,
Right.
literally. And so when segregation was abolished, my mom used to work at a local diner in her town, and she thought segregation has been abolished. She said she remembers it and she tells the story. It was a Sunday morning. She went to church. She left church. She changed her clothes and put on her little uniform for the diner. And she decided that day, because prior to that day, she had to come into the back of the diner. He would never let the help come in the front door. And
Right.
so when segregation was abolished, my mother decided today's the day I'm not going through the back door anymore. I don't have to
Right.
go through this back door. It was her last day working there, but she was like, I refuse to walk through a back door ever again. And she took that stance. And so when I think about that kind of living and knowing that those are the consequences of our actions, would I do that today? I don't know, to that
Right.
level. I mean, she had a family to feed and she still said, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not. And
Mm.
so a lot of us, when you think about the comparison, it's way, way off.
There is something that I want to just throw out there, because some people say that as far as the culture is concerned, a lot of things were accepted back then that should not have been accepted.
Hmm,
And so, because of that, there was a lingering of hurt, a
absolutely.
residual hurt that
And
came along with
unforgiveness.
that. Right, and unforgiveness. And so, we are
Yep.
essentially the manifestation of lingering unforgiveness.
Hmm.
And so, how do we address that unforgiveness now? For me, I believe that this is where the church kind of should be stepping in, but they fall very much short in that space. Again, I'm going to say it's on twofold because of the offense, that the spirit of offense that dwells within even
Mhm.
the church setting,
Correct.
um, that's there, but also because of um, I don't even. I'm not gonna say that.
Say it.
I'm gonna just leave it there. I think
Wait,
it's
wait,
just
wait,
the
wait, wait. I'm
unwillingness.
sorry.
Okay, I'm take the cover off. I got you. I got
Thank
you.
you. You know,
I
you
think
took it off.
it's sheer unwillingness to want to really acknowledge the fact that people are hurting because of our own hurts and pains that we cause, right?
Mm.
And so the
Mhm.
Black community, and I can only speak for the community in which I grew up and that I'm in,
Mhm.
and please know that this is not, we put the disclaimer out there, this is
Always.
not, we do not have all the answers, we do not know everything. This is the facilitation of a conversation that helps to get us into thinking about ourselves, our own journey, so that we might pursue our individual healing.
Correct.
And we're all
Correct.
on the journey together, right?
That's right.
What I want us to do, though, is I want us to all speak truth and truth to life, right? So that we can be set free. The issue with unforgiveness, it really starts and is manifested in a spiritual space. And the unforgiveness is shown through our leaders, right? And our
Mm.
community leaders. So if we are watching our community leaders going at it in public space and saying how they ain't feeling with it and they don't like this and such and such and such, how is it that we are going to uphold a mandate to forgive in our nuclear unit, our homes, right? What is it that we can do to break some of these cycles and this tradition that is
Mm.
out there, as not just as individuals or people within the family nucleus, but as leaders and church leaders at that? What can we say about that dynamic, Ned? I'm sorry, you told me to take it off, so I
Yes.
tried to keep it encapsulated.
Well, that wouldn't be you. So let's let's
Only
deal
you
with
know.
it. But no, I think you're absolutely correct in that. I think that there is a huge responsibility that falls on the church when it comes to guiding, leading, and developing our communities, right? And that's not, please let me say this too, that is not to say that there aren't other entities, other people, other organizations in our communities that take a part, right?
Right.
In a grander scale, our churches traditionally have always been the speak out place for our folks. It was, in years past, the churches were the place where you got your information. It was the place where you were able to get guidance, get understanding, to get the 411 on what's going on, along the chain and throughout the chain. And so without the church's involvement, a lot of the stuff that would have and should have been there to help guide our folks went to the wayside. So I agree with you. I think the churches play a big part in that. But I have to say that there is still a need for us as individuals to, do our due diligence,
Right.
and acknowledging and becoming aware of what's going on around us. How do we approach it? How do I deal? Knowing that there's generational hurt, generational unforgiveness that exists, doesn't mean necessarily that I just jump on that bandwagon and ride.
Right.
At some point we have to realize and say to ourselves, one of my cliches, or I like to say, is it's the now what moment, right? Okay, I know that you're hurting. Now what? Once we've acknowledged that that's happened, now what? And so at some point as a community, we got to get to our now what phase and say, and even for men, more importantly, now what? Okay, yep, you're struggling. Now what? You lost your job. I know, I got you. Now what? You just came home from prison. Now what? You know what I mean? We still have to know, we have to deal with that. And we really have to be, cognizant of the fact that, this is where I'm at. It's not comfortable. I don't want to be here, but what do I do? How do I go about? Who do I connect to help me get out of that place? And again, it starts with self. It starts with being in the position where you are willing to look in the mirror and see what's lacking or what's missing or what you need, and be willing to address it, and be humble enough to say to somebody, listen, I don't know what I'm doing. I need your help. I have no idea how to get through this. Can you guide me?
Yeah, that's good, Ned. That's real good. As we wrap up, and I know that there's been a lot that's been said here today, I really want to address the fact that we're talking about brother forgive, right? And so when we say brother forgive, Ned, what is it that you would like for us um, as a community for our men to know about helping our brothers to forgive? And then what is it that you want the brother who needs to forgive to hear?
Wow. There's a lot that I'd like to have as the takeaway today, to be honest with you.
You got it's 5:39. You got 10 minutes, whatever you can get.
So here's my I guess my takeaway, or what I would hope to be the takeaway, and it is a cry, to be honest with you, and I pray it's not a cry in the dark, but it is a cry to the light, for brothers to understand and start to realize that it is so necessary for our culture's development, that we start becoming more humble, more aware, and become more intentful in our behavior towards that healing. Forgiveness is huge for us. The ability to be a better dad, be a better husband, be a better son is based off of that. I'll never be the father that I want to be if I continue to have unforgiving spirits towards my children's mother. right? I'll
Mm,
never be the best brother I could be if I resent or hold unforgiving spirits against my sisters, my elder brothers and sisters, or my parents, even, or my pastor, or anybody. So it's important for us. It's so important for us to be able to stand on our own principles and our belief systems, that healing is important for us, and understanding that in order for us to embrace that, we have to start learning to forgive the folks who've hurt us. And again, I'm not saying to you that that's an overnight moment. It's not
right.
something that's going to happen for you when you close your eyes and wake up tomorrow, but it does happen tomorrow. The start of that happens tomorrow when you wake up and say, today is the day that I'm going to do different. Today is the day I'm going to make a conscious effort, an intentful purpose to start this ball rolling. And it starts by just acknowledging it right up front. Here's where I'm hurting. Here's what has hurt me. Here's who hurt me. And deal with that. Whether that's in a conversation with that person, or whether that's in a conversation with yourself first and foremost, to say, how do I go about this? What do I need to heal, and address it? And as my sister has always said to you every week, we are here. So if you have a question, a concern, or how do I go about it, hit us up in the comments and we will respond. We just want to make sure that we're all in this together, and you know that you're not alone, and that it's a struggle, but it is a struggle worth walking through.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my moment.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It takes a community. It
It
truly
does.
does.
It does.
To be able to reach a point in the game where you um, can get the courage to really face all of the things that we face on a day-to-day basis, especially when it comes to dealing with the healing part of the process.
Mhm.
And so I want to thank each and every one of you for being here with us and joining us this afternoon as we explore the conversation of heal, brother, and forgive, brother, right? So we want to just make sure that you stay connected with us, follow us on
Please.
Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Make sure that you go and follow us on royaltynetwork.net, Facebook. If you have any questions or comments, we get it right away. So just leave us a message, leave us a note. We are here to be able to be that support and guidance to you. And if we aren't able to do it ourselves, we have connections and affiliates
Absolutely.
that we are able to connect you with to make sure that you get those resources. If there is anyone who is struggling with any type of suicidal ideations or anything
Mhm.
like that, or feeling like they are just in a really deep and dark place, there are resources here. You can actually go on and on the web, and there is a notification, and there will be a notification in our box in a few minutes that will be giving you a chat line that you can go and speak to someone who's a professional to help you if you are in
Correct.
that space. We love each and every one of our listeners. We invite you to continue to like and share. We want to get the message out. We want to invite more people into this space. If if we will see you then again in 2 weeks. I'm
2
thinking like
weeks.
we're gonna see you next week. In 2 weeks, we will see you guys
Absolutely.
again for our
Absolutely.
next segment of Barbershop Conversations in the Throne Room. Until next week, we will be having another throne room conversation, and I look forward to seeing you guys then. Until then, have a great night, guys, and
Listen, take
remember,
care.
take the cover off. Talk to you guys soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.